As well. There we are. I think we are live on Facebook Live. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight on Facebook Live and on the Vibe Radio Network. We're very happy to have you join us here on Quarantine Day 21.
As you can see, we brought Figment out. We need some magic.
Yeah, you can also see that we've actually improved our surroundings a little bit. We are no longer all hunched up on top of each other, sitting in front of our phone.
We figured out something that had a better camera than the computer, but is bigger than the phone.
So, yeah, so welcome to our corporate headquarters here, Richmond Historic Haunts of Richmond corporate headquarters.
And it's finally cleaned up enough we can do this.
Yes. So,
that has been a project.
Yes, the last 3 weeks have been put to very good use here at Haunts of Richmond, and so we are very excited to be able to finally show off our corporate headquarters as they are. Day 21, yeah. Things are getting a little rough around here. So.
And we just had to reschedule a vacation today, so, we're working with it.
Reschedule
so, Figgy, I'm going to put you down, because I need both hands. Give us some luck, though. We need some magic. Okay, so today's topic, we're actually going to talk about haunted highways. And for as long as people have been telling stories, as long as people have been traveling out of their villages to other locations, there have been tales of a person along the road who's looking for help, who's looking for a ride themselves, who hitchhikes, and then when you get to their destination, that person vanishes. So that's actually what we're going to be talking about. We're going to kind of bounce all over the world and then end back here in our hometown of Virginia, not too far away from here as well, with some of our more haunted highways in this area. But I've been having fun with this, and there are so many stories out there about haunted highways that this is just part one.
Yeah, it's going to be a multi-part series. We're
I'm going to do multiple ones of these, because there are some fun tales out there, I gotta tell you. But we'll start with the most famous of them all, and that is the story of Resurrection Mary. And this is the one that a lot of people have heard some variation of, told over the ghost story, or, ghost story told over the campfire, or they've seen it on TV. I've seen them do this story quite a few times on different paranormal documentaries and other investigation shows. So that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure we started with something people are familiar with, and then we'll just have fun from there. So Resurrection Mary actually comes out of Justice, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. And the story is of a young woman who has been seen since the 1930s, early to mid-1930s. There's a 6-mile stretch of road here that's known as Archer Avenue. It's between the Willowbrook Ballroom and the Resurrection Cemetery. And the Willowbrook Ballroom was actually once known as the O. Henry Ballroom. So you'll hear both ballrooms mentioned, the same building. But in this 6-mile stretch, there is a woman who is often seen wearing a white dress. Some say a ball gown, some say a wedding dress. But she is seen on the side of the road asking for a ride. She appears out of nowhere, and sometimes she's even seen to be jumping in front of the car or falling in front of the car. But the tale originally actually started out as a hitchhiking tale. So the first story, as I said, came from the late 1930s. It was a man named Jerry Paulus. He was attending a dance at the O. Henry Ballroom. He met a young lady there. He immediately liked her. They danced all night long. They even shared a kiss, which, shocker, that wasn't allowed back then, but it happened. And at the end of the evening, she shyly asked him if he would give her a ride home, and he was more than happy to do this, because he was hoping that this would blossom into a lovely romance. He really, really liked this girl, and so he was happy to be able to learn where she lived and be able to continue their romance, hopefully after this night was over. So they got into his car, and he headed off towards the Resurrection Cemetery down Archer Avenue. When they got to Resurrection Cemetery, they actually, he was asked to stop the car. She got out of the car. He went around to ask her what was going on, felt her hand. It was deathly cold, and she said, "I have to go now. I have to leave." And she started walking towards the gates, the closed gates of the cemetery. She walked right through them and slowly disappeared the further away from the car that she got. And that was the first reported sighting of Resurrection Mary. Since then, there have been more than plenty of people who have actually seen her and had very similar experiences. There's actually, it takes the form of one of 3 experiences. Excuse me, I'm a little tongue-tied tonight. I'm not drinking tonight, and I probably should be. I'll let you take over.
Where did you leave off? I've been doing tech stuff, sorry.
Sorry, I left off there.
Okay. So yeah, one of three things will typically happen. So you'll either go ahead, you'll meet Mary at the ballroom or the nightclub, and sometime during the night she'll ask to be taken home. And what good gentleman isn't going to go ahead and offer the lady a ride home if she needs a ride?
If your mama taught you right, that's what you do.
Yes. So she'll go ahead and you'll be driving along, and she'll ask you to drive her along Archer Avenue, and then she will abruptly ask you to stop in front of the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a little odd, and like, you don't live here, do you? Except she will get out of the car. She will go to the cemetery gates, the Resurrection Cemetery gates. She will walk through, and they will see her disappear as she enters through the gates. Mm-hmm. Another thing that will happen is that Mary will just suddenly appear out of nowhere, almost to be struck by a car. She appears somewhere on that section of highway, and before somebody can, kind of freak out, they'll slam on the brakes, hop out of the car, asking, ready to turn and say, "What are you doing? What's going on?" She won't be there anymore. So that's the second thing, and then the third is that she will just be seen casually along the roadway, not just suddenly popping out or anything like that, and looking to hitchhike. But when a motorist goes ahead, pulls up to go ahead and give her a ride, she will then, again, disappear on them. So there's several different ways that people have seen Mary along this section of highway or section of road over the years.
Now, we mentioned she started showing up in the 30s. She continued showing up in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. But it wasn't until the 70s that she really became a frequent visitor on Archer Avenue. And this is where another one of the very unique stories comes out. It happened in 1976. A gentleman was driving by the cemetery late at night, and he happened to notice a woman in white standing behind the gates of Resurrection Cemetery.
Resurrection Cemetery? What kind of name is that? Resurrection Cemetery. That is some pet cemetery type stuff you got going on there.
That's where the zombie apocalypse will start. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, never been there. Would like to go. I think we need to get a couple of our paranormal teams together, maybe go check out a few of these places. He was passing by there, and he saw her stand behind the gate. Her hands were clasped around the iron bars of the gate, and he noticed that she was wearing her long white flowing dress. She had white gloves on her hands. He thought this was very odd that somebody would be standing on the inside of the gates holding onto it, kind of peering out like they're stuck behind there that she can't get out.
Fairly well dressed at that, too.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very nice, long flowing white dress. So he thought this was very odd and went to the local police station. Again, 1976, no cell phones. So he drove to the local police station. He reported what he had seen. The officer went to check it out. When he got there, she wasn't standing there anymore, of course, which is the way it is. But he did examine the bars, and he noticed that two of them had been pulled slightly apart, and that they were scorched and actually had indentations that were about the size of fingertips in the bars. Now, this story got out, and everybody had to come see the scorch-marked bars by Mary. So people started coming up day and night to see these, and it got so bad that finally the cemetery actually released a statement saying, "Sorry, folks, this was not a ghost bending the bars. Somebody backed into our gate, and the exhaust pipe actually pushed the bars apart, and that exhaust pipe was so hot it actually scorched the bars." I still don't see how that could have actually indented it with fingerprint marks, but we'll let them have their story. We know cemeteries that are active cemeteries don't like to say when they are haunted or not, because they want to be respectful of the people that are buried there and the families who have family members there. We had that same situation here in the city.
Yes, with another major cemetery that, well, everybody knows.
Yeah, so we don't need to mention it.
Yes. And it was in Illinois, Patrick. If you can get there, I suppose you could go look for Mary if you were so inclined. You might be rather disappointed at the results.
But we'll see. Where I lost myself in my notes. Okay, I'm on this page.
So who is she?
Yeah, who is she? There's one of three people that she could be. And so we're actually going to work our way through them. The first is the youngest contender. She was 12 years old when she passed away. So I'll let you talk about Maria.
Yeah, Maria. I got Maria.
Yeah.
Not Maria. Maria.
Maria. It's with a J.
Ana Maria Norquis. She was only 12 years old, passing the cemetery when the car went off the road and she was killed instantly while others received non-life-threatening injuries. I personally have a little bit of an issue with this theory of it being a 12-year-old, considering that they see her all the time at the ballroom and the nightclub.
And older gentlemen are attracted to her. Plus, she is the one who died the earliest. She actually died in 1927, and this ghost wasn't starting to be seen until the mid-1930s.
Which, that in and of itself, at least that timeline kind of lines up.
It could, but I do think that she's probably not our ghost. The second one, however, is probably our Mary.
Has a very good chance of it. Mary Bregovny. So Mary she was returning home from the O. Henry's ballroom with friends when she was killed in a car crash. Kind of got a little bit of a theme going here. And
this was in 1934.
Yes. And it was the caretaker of Resurrection Cemetery who started the claim that Mary Bregovny was haunting the cemetery, Archer Avenue, and the local ballrooms and clubs. So this is something coming from somebody that worked at Resurrection Cemetery, saying that they think that this young woman is still in the area haunting the cemetery, the road, and the clubs up the way.
Right. And so having somebody who works there who probably helped bury her gives good credence as to who this might be.
Yeah, and it makes a little more sense. She was documented as being at the ballroom, so she's got the tie there. That would make sense for her showing up there. And then
she was coming home via a car when she was killed, and she is buried at Resurrection Cemetery. So she has those three links that actually help sort of prove that this might be our Mary.
Yeah, and then the third one is a woman by the name of Mary Mikowski. This Mary, we don't know exactly how old she was because we don't have her date of birth, but she died in 1930, also along Archer Road. She was crossing the road on her way to a costume party when she was struck and killed by a car.
Common theme.
If your name is Mary, don't drive or go anywhere near Archer Road up there, and just stay away from it.
Yeah, so. Now, many people think that our second Mary Bregovny, I pronounced that totally wrong, is so much our Mary that they actually will write notes and leave flowers for her at her marker in the cemetery. And they will be actually trying to pass her along or move her along so she stops haunting. So far, she has not stopped haunting. But this is not the only ghost who haunts Archer Avenue. There's actually a second cemetery a little bit further on, known as St. James Skay Cemetery, and this one actually reports having ghostly monks on its premises. Now, the sightings have been going on back since the 1800s, and they haven't lessened with time. One of the most well-known stories that happened with these monks is a police officer was driving by. He noticed some movement in the cemetery, so he pulled up to the gates of the cemetery to check it out and to make sure that everything was okay, or if not, he could take care of it if need be. He saw men rise up wearing hooded cloaks, and he thought it looked very old-fashioned monk-like. And then he started to watch them move towards the rectory. He's like, oh, no, these hooligans are not getting away with this prank. We are going to take care of this. So he hops out of his patrol car, he goes through the gates, he starts running after these hooded figures, and he's falling all over the place because of the roots, because of the tombstones, because it's pitch black. He doesn't necessarily have the flashlight up. And he stops after he falls over one of the tombstones, and he realizes that these figures are gliding or floating effortlessly across the grounds. He never did catch up with them before they disappeared.
I don't know about you. I got to give the guy some credit or something, because if I saw 8 guys in hoods in a cemetery just rise up and out of nowhere late at night, effortlessly gliding across the ground, my first thought would not to be chasing these guys. My first thought was get out of there before I wind up being some sort of ritual human sacrifice.
Yeah, I've seen way too many of those movies, and they don't end well.
No, yeah, so I think I would probably be staying away from that situation.
But he had kahunas, so we'll give them to him.
Yeah, that or just not up with the horror.
No.
Maybe that could be it as well.
So our final one is one that actually haunts the road itself. And this is actually a old-time horse-drawn black hearse that is seen on Archer Avenue. The first report came in 1897 from a pair of young gentlemen who were staying at a recreation hall located on Archer Avenue. They were renting rooms there for the night. They were asleep and heard a very odd sound coming from outside. They decided to investigate. Now, by investigation, they didn't run outside like Scooby-Doo gang. Sorry, they weren't quite that good. They went to the window, and they looked out, and what they saw emerging from the black road, because it was very pitch dark, remember, no electric lights at this point in time, and they saw a horse-drawn carriage, 4 horses drawing this hearse coming towards them, emerging out of this black night. And they said that was a little unnerving, especially since it's, well after midnight, and most everybody has gone to bed at this point in time. There shouldn't be a funeral going on. But what really creeped them out is that there was this unnatural light emanating from inside the carriage. Now, if you guys have ever seen one of these carriages, they're glass. They're see-through, so you can see the coffin inside. And they described the coffin as being a child's coffin that was glowing from like an internal light illuminating this coffin. And they said that freaked them out so bad they just dove back into their beds and, pillows over their heads and didn't look anymore at all out the window until daylight. Now, it's most often it is cars that will see this hearse driving down the, or I should say being drawn down, down the road at night. And it does actually cause people to swerve and almost crash because they're not used to seeing a hearse like that anymore, especially one that's got an eerie glow to it.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky. And not the type of thing that you're accustomed to seeing these days.
Absolutely not.
No, granted, glowing coffins and that is not the kind of thing that you're accustomed to seeing on any day, I would think.
I'd scream radioactive and run in the opposite direction.
Probably be a good idea to do that.
Granted, I've always wanted to be a mutant, so I might run towards it. Sorry, I want flying powers. I want to be Storm.
No, that's not how it works.
I know. Anyway, we
so,
digress.
Yeah, we digress. So that are the tales of Resurrection Cemetery and
Archer Avenue.
Archer Avenue up there in Chicago.
Just outside of Chicago.
Just outside Chicago.
Justice.
So, Justice, Illinois, just up outside of Chicago. Yeah. So, if you're just joining us, we're talking about haunted highways tonight. So
we're going to jump across the big pond.
Yes, we got another one to go ahead and explore. This time we're going to go to a location that's kind of near and dear to our hearts. We're going to...
almost home.
Almost home. Beautiful country of Scotland. Now, Scotland, of course, very old country, history going back well over 1,000 years,
yes.
With all kinds of tumultuous activity and whatnot through the years.
A lot of battles between clans, between the English and the Scottish. There's a lot of history there we're not going to get into right now.
Yes. But we are going to focus on something that's a little more modern. We're going to focus on one of the roads up there, and this one is known as the A75.
So like we have Interstate 95, they have A75.
And it is known as Kinmount Strait, or, appropriate enough, the Ghost Road, and it may be the most haunted highway around due to the numerous and varying tales of hauntings that have occurred there over the years. Now, just to warn you, this first one is a bit over the top. This is going to be our comic relief for this evening.
It is.
So please,
I
do
kept
enjoy.
reading this, and I was like, seriously?
Please do
really?
enjoy. This is going to be a good one.
So this happened with a pair of lorry drivers. Those of you who don't know what a lorry is, it is the European term for a truck driver. So we have a couple of lorry drivers. They are brothers, the Ferguson brothers, Derek and Norman. And they are taking a night run with their load. It's in 1962, I believe is what I wrote down.
Yep.
And they're well familiar with this route, and so they're doing their run, and they're heading along their way when out of nowhere a chicken flies into their headlights and is heading straight towards the windshield. Now, I know you're all thinking chickens don't fly. Actually, they can. It's just not very well.
Only for short distances.
Yes, but
they have to be kind of freaked out to do that.
Yes, but it's heading for the windshield, and they can't swerve. They know it's too late. And they brace for impact, expecting the windshield to shatter, and nothing happens. The chicken or the hen disappears. They're like, okay, that was odd. Then comes a woman screaming down the road, waving her hands frantically, and they're like, what's going on? Trying to swerve, and she disappears. Was she looking for the chicken? We don't know. But after her comes an old man. Again, very weathered, grizzled white hair, shabbily dressed in older style clothing. He's running towards them as well, and he's screaming. He's screaming so loudly they can hear it inside the cab of the truck. And He is heading towards them. They're trying to swerve out of his way, and he disappears. That's 3 things that are come flying towards them in a very frantic way, disappearing right away. They stop the truck. They pull over to the side. They want to take a breather, gather their thoughts, because, oh my God, this is weird. This is out of control. What's going on? Then the truck starts to move and sway and rock like somebody's shaking it, trying to tip it over. Derek's had enough. He opens the door, he puts his foot down, and everything stops. Even the temperature that had started to drop goes back to normal. He gets out, he walks around the truck. He can't find any damage. He can't find anything to show them that there was people running at them, that there was a hen coming at them. No feathers, no hair, no damage, no nothing. They take a few more minutes to calm, to get quiet, to get their nerve back. And finally they pull the truck back onto the A75. As they start going towards the continuation of the road that turns and goes up a slight hill, they notice another truck coming down towards them, which isn't unheard of at night when you're doing truck runs. But they see that truck swerving as well, and they're thinking, oh my God, it's seeing the same thing we just saw. It's seeing the chicken, it's seeing the man and the woman, it's seeing other animals. Whatever, it's swerving, it's dodging. It doesn't see us. Oh shit. And it starts coming straight for them. They're trying to figure out how to swerve, but it's also swerving. So do I go this way? Do I go that way? They don't know. And right as they're about to make that last minute decision to swerve out of the way, that truck disappears. I'd be a little shaken. I'd probably put the truck in park and sleep for the rest of the night.
I don't think I would have gotten that far. As soon as the whole menagerie starts kind of parading down the highway towards me, I think that might have been my cue to go ahead and call it a night.
Yeah, but they kept going.
To their credit.
To their credit, they kept going. They actually got to where they were supposed to go, and it had been a night for them. They were very unsettled all the way for the rest of the evening. Kept expecting to see more and more things coming at them, but luckily nothing else came at them that night. Other motorists have also seen things going on here. One woman reported seeing a man just lunge across the front of her bumper as if he was chasing something. She thought she was going to have a fatal impact. There was no way to stop. She hit the brakes. She braced for impact. She braced for that thud that she was expecting. She never heard it. She never felt it.
Just disappeared.
He just disappeared. She pulled over. She looked. She couldn't find him. She pulled out the flashlight out of her car. She was searching the entire area. She could not find a thing, and there was no damage to her car. Another gentleman told us that he was also a truck driver, and he was basically driving late at night, got really exhausted to the point where he knew he was unsafe to drive. So he pulled the truck over and decided to get some sleep. And this is actually pretty common. You will see truck drivers pulled off to the side on any of the Scottish roads. You actually will see campers off to the side on Scottish roads as well. So he pulled off to the side. He pulled out his little bedding area in the back and fell asleep. Well, something around 3 a.m. woke him up. He doesn't know what it was. He heard something. He felt something. His mind realizes there was something else there. So he wakes up. He looks out the back window of his truck, and he actually sees dozens upon dozens of people dressed in medieval garb and rags, carrying bundles, pushing handcarts or pulling handcarts, just parading by the back of the truck. And he's going, this ain't cool, folks. This is really not cool. I don't know who you are, I don't know what you are, but you don't belong here. You're not in this time. So he watched this parade go by, and when it was over, he said it might have been an hour. He wasn't really sure. He couldn't tell because he didn't look at the clock when he started to watch them, and he definitely didn't look at it when they finished. He just got back into the driver's seat. He pulled the truck back onto the road. He went to his delivery location, made the delivery, and then called his boss, and he quit. He refused to go back on the A75 ever again, and as far as people know, he has kept that promise.
And then there is one more small tale, and that is of Hessian,
Yep.
which is basically like German descent. You might have heard of the Hessian soldiers that partook and were hired basically as mercenaries during the American Revolution.
The Headless Horseman was a Hessian soldier.
Yeah, so they've been all over the place through the years. German mercenaries were very much a thing in the 1700s and 1800s. And there's this tale of a Hessian hooded figure who's also been seen. And there's animals that have shape-shifted right before people's eyes. That is a common occurrence there along the road. A woman in black with a flat black hat is seen, but only from the waist up. And remember when traveling the A75 to keep your head and don't let the ghosts wreck your car.
I don't think we traveled the A75 when we went to Scotland.
I don't think we did either. I think that's one road that we did not get to. There was a lot of Scotland that we didn't get to.
No, we didn't. We stuck kind of to this side, and we didn't go anywhere on this side.
We went for a week, and a week is just nowhere near enough to explore the entire country.
We need to go back.
Yes, we need to go back. And maybe the A75 will be on our itinerary next time.
Yes.
So.
But we're going to jump back over here to the States. We're going to go down to Florida on a road we have been on.
Yes, we have been on this road numerous times, actually.
Yes.
The stretch of, now I can say I.
Yes, you
The
can.
stretch of I-4, Interstate 4, between Dayton and Tampa. So
if you don't know it, and probably have driven it, this is the road you take to go to Disney.
Yes. Yeah, basically Orlando is smack dab in the middle between Daytona and Tampa. And this particular section of road that's reported to be the most haunted is the section that's between Orlando and Daytona.
Right, and it's where the bridge is.
Yes, there's a big bridge there, and we've been on that section of road many a time.
Mm-hmm. The last time we were on it, it was full of construction.
It's been full of construction for quite a while, actually.
Well, you've driven it more than I have.
Yeah, fair enough.
So. But the area that this was actually originally inhabited by the Native Americans, the Maika, or the Dorjo Native American tribe. They were unfortunately decimated by the Europeans through war and through disease. Following them, and after the Seminole Wars, Florida actually becomes a state, and this attracts a lot of Swedish indentured servants. So they come down and they actually start joining into colonies and working the land, clearing it, and start planting the citrus, the orange groves that we all know today, and turning this area into one of the biggest orange producing centers of the world. Now, unfortunately for this colony, it was known as St. Joseph's Colony. They had a lot of bad luck that just happened in threes, and you all know things happen in threes. So they had a horrifying fire break out after the 10th year there, and it destroyed much of the settlement. Then they had the yellow fever epidemic go through, and that killed a lot of the people at the settlement. And then immediately following that, there was the harshest historic freeze that had ever taken place in Florida at that point in time, and it basically killed the crops. And so anybody who was still left alive after the epidemic, they left. And it was just a ghost town after that. Sanford rebounded a little bit further upstream, and it was a port city at that point in time. Eventually the population increased and the community became prosperous again. But this settlement kind of laid vacant for a while until the early 1900s, when Al Hawkins, who was a farmer, he brought his wife there and bought a large portion of the old St. Joseph Colony. And he decided to clear it out again and find the celery fields that were marked as being there and reopen the orange groves. So they spent a lot of time digging and clearing and getting this land ready. And when they were in one of the middle of the fields, they discovered 4 small wooden cemetery markers. Now, Al was smart. He knows it's not a good thing to go and disturbing the dead. So he didn't. He wanted to leave these alone. He actually marked it off with a fence, and he plowed around it. He actually dug the field around it, and he left these graves alone. The problem was a lot of his neighbors did not care for seeing this cemetery in the middle of this field. It weirded them out. They would see lights. They would see shadow figures. They would have things moving around their house. If they went to inspect the cemetery and go home, things would follow them home and basically do poltergeist activity and be speaking in their house, and it wigged them out. So one gentleman got so ticked off about the cemetery, he actually went and he destroyed the fence.
That's kind of drastic.
That's not good. Because
and entirely disrespectful. And all
very
that too.
disrespectful. Yeah. And he actually had his house struck by lightning later that season, and it was burned to the ground.
Karma is...
Yeah, karma's not good. Don't mess with her.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened is in the 1950s, one of the grandchildren of Al Hawkins actually was playing in the cemetery. And we don't know if this was on purpose or by accident, but he knocked over one of the grave markers. Poor grandson got into a car the next day and was killed in a car crash. They saw it as disrespectful. He paid the price, unfortunately. Now, also in the 1950s, this is when I-4 actually comes into fruition and is going to get constructed. So they needed to buy the land that the Hawkins farm was on. And at this point in time, Mr. Hawkins had died, so it was the widow who controlled the land. She was actually approached by the developer. She was also approached by Walt Disney himself. He actually talked to her saying that this area was going to become quite prosperous with this dream that he had for this area, for the development that he was planning to bring to the area. And he actually helped convince her to sell the land. Of course, we know that development to become Walt Disney World. Biggie. Another reason why we have Big on tonight. So she sold the land, but when she sold the land, she told them about the graves. And she suggested very strongly that they move the graves and reinter them somewhere else.
Respectfully.
And they agreed to do this. They said they would move the bodies and rebury them in a proper cemetery in Sanford. In come the engineers. I'm sorry, honey. They're not your type of engineers, though. They're engineers.
We don't get away with that kind of thing these days.
With
good reason. I don't want to. I'm not looking to plow under any graves. That's the last thing I want to do. We don't need any curses following me home.
No. So in come the surveying engineers, and the surveying engineers make the decision not to move the graves.
This was the 1950s.
Yeah. They called it an executive decision, and they said that they felt it was best and beneficial to the construction and time issues to ignore the graves and build over them. One other engineer goes further and says, it's not like it's an ancient Indian burial ground. They're just a few old bones.
Facepalm.
Yeah, if I was dead in that burial ground, I'd be haunting him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
That was just disrespectful. Period.
Yeah.
So, on the day that they actually started digging in that area and plowing over the graves and adding levels of dirt because they were building it up for the bridge start, we had a slight issue.
By the name of Donna. Hurricane Donna, to be exact.
Major hurricane. She was predicted to go up the coast and not hit this area, but as soon as she got to right where that is, she took a hard left and nailed the site. Let's just say millions of dollars, hundreds of lives, and months of delay on the construction.
I don't know if it was hundreds of lives.
It was quite a few lives.
It was several lives. Either way, long story short, big disaster, bad news.
And this started the curse of the I-4.
Wasn't even open yet. They couldn't even have the first car driving down the pavement.
There was no bridge yet.
There was no bridge.
So, since then, once I got the bridge up and running and the I-4 up and running, it is said right at the southern part of the bridge on the, I think it's the eastbound lane, that is where you actually will see pioneer ghosts, shadow figures. There's also a dead zone there where if you have your radio station playing, ghostly voices will come on instead of your radio station. If you have a CB radio for truckers, you'll hear ghostly noises over the radios. Your cell phone may start projecting ghostly noises, or everything will go dead. Or
you'll start to hear the actual voices and be able to make out some of the things they say. One of which is who's there, kind of a little, kind of your typical kind of EVP type of activity that you might expect to hear in some haunted places. But the more disturbing but even shorter question of why? Why? Why did you plow these graves under?
Mm-hmm. Why did you not move us like you promised?
You broke your promise.
So, up to date today, depending on the source that you read or you research, there have been 1,500 to 2,000 car accidents right in this one section of the I-4. People will sometimes claim it's as if somebody is taking control of the steering wheel and driving for them, causing accidents. Other people will see things darting in front of them or see things on the side of the road, which causes them to swerve and hit somebody next to them.
It's so bad that many of the locals in the area, they will not even drive on that section of road. They know how problematic and the troublesome history that it has. And, this is actually, it got to the point, it was reported on News 13, one of the local news networks down there, that there was so much occurring on this section of highway and it was having so many issues. And that, yes, they definitely broadcasted and put it out there that, oh yeah, when they originally built this, they went ahead and they plowed under a bunch of graves. So...
Now, there's also a weird weather phenomenon going on here. There's reported an unusual amount of tornadoes that hit this section of this road. So that's odd within itself. And Donna wasn't the only hurricane to make a beeline for this section of road. When Hurricane Charlie came through in 2004, that was actually the year Chris and I moved down here to Richmond.
Was that that year?
That was that year.
That was okay. Wow.
Or no.
Yeah, maybe it was. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was 2004.
Time flies.
Yeah. But when it came up here, it was just tropical storm. But at that point in time, again, it was supposed to follow the coastline and go straight up and miss this section of the road. They were doing construction on the bridge that time, though. And as soon as the hurricane got to that point, it made the same turn that Donna did and nailed the construction site again.
So, yeah, it's definitely kind of has a dangerous, nasty aura about it. And on top of just the numerous accidents that have occurred and the general cursed feeling of it, there has been a whole smattering of just various types of paranormal activity that have been reported in the area. Ghostly lights, shadow people, orbs, roving cold spots, sudden thick fog just kind of springing up in front of people.
Scooby-Doo fog.
Yeah, so all of these various manifestations have been reported in this area. None of them have a very direct, compelling story to tell. They're just kind of things that happen there and that people have reported. Oh, and then, of course, you have your kind of stereotypical phantom hitchhikers and ghostly vehicles that appear near where the graves are as well. So,
well, also considering how many accidents have been there and deaths, I'm not surprised there are phantom hitchhikers and phantom vehicles as well.
You see something pop up in front of you, you swerve, and once again, as in our stories that we've been telling thus far this evening, accidents occur.
Yep. So now we're going to go north. We're going to go up to New Jersey to West Milford and Clinton Road. Now this one's kind of a fun one. It has been a very frightening road for drivers for decades. It's surrounded by an impenetrable forest or woods. Very few homes are in this area, and it's been that way for a long time. Everybody's been scared of this land, that they haven't settled it since the Native Americans and early settlers. The Native Americans knew there was something on this land, and they didn't settle it. They stayed clear of it. But the first legend is that actually of Ghost Boy Bridge. This is an old bridge. It is right near a very sharp and dangerous curve in the road, and it's haunted by the ghost of a young boy. The tale starts with somebody throwing a coin off of the bridge and into the water. The boy will then take the coin and throw it back at you. He will sometimes also throw pebbles and coins if you have not thrown something in the water and he wants to get your attention. People have reported being pelted by pennies and small stones as well. Another visitor reported actually throwing a penny into the water, looking down to see if something would come back up, and instead he saw the reflection of a very young boy's face staring back up at him from the water. Now, where did this boy come from? The rumor or the story behind it is that he was walking along the bridge and he saw a coin on the ground. He bent over to pick it up. A car came around that dangerous curve, didn't see him, and hit him and killed him right then and there. Now, another story is that he can be helpful if you actually drop a quarter on the bridge, which some people believe that was actually the coin he was bending over to pick up. you will actually be pushed off of the road and sometimes hard enough to land in the water. And it was sort of like pushing you away so you don't suffer the same fate as the young boy did.
So, a helpful ghost.
A helpful ghost.
Normally getting pushed around by spirits and poltergeists and stuff like that, not such a good thing. But in this case, trying to be a little helpful. And hi, Terry. Thanks for joining us this evening.
So another thing that will happen is that as you're driving down Clinton Road, of course, you're going to see headlights in the middle of the night. All cars should have their headlights on. But what is unique about these is you'll see these come in out of nowhere. You won't see them pulling on. You won't see them coming from the distance. They'll just all of a sudden be there, and then they'll start to move faster and gaining on you. And it'll be to the level of speed that is unsafe, and it's too close for you and that car to be traveling along safely. So you will try to figure out, can you pull over, can you not pull over, and then all of a sudden the headlights will be gone. You will not have seen the car pull off. You will not even have seen a car. The headlights are just gone. So we have phantom headlights on this road. Never fun. Now, a lot of places along here are abandoned. There's actually two in particular that have things happen around there. There's an old furnace that was used for smelting iron in the 1700s. People claim that this furnace is haunted, but I have not been able to find any actual ghost stories on it. It's all oral. Nothing's been written down. Although there are rumors that this place has been used for ceremonies and rituals, but again, the facts that we're not finding to be able to tell you about them, but it just adds to that air of mystery in there.
It's kind of easy to believe because the place its name is Clinton Furnace, and it has a bit of a it has a structure to it. I mean, you imagine buildings that date back to the 1700s. They're usually pretty stout, pretty remarkable structures. They got heft to them, and not just literal physical heft, but they oftentimes have a kind of energy type heft to them as well. And this is kind of what this building lends to. It's a building that has, they say that, and it's drawn people in to go ahead and conduct various types of rituals through the years, and you can use your very dark imagination to imagine what those rituals are.
And sometimes when you do things like that, you release something you really shouldn't.
Yeah.
So it's not fun.
Yeah.
But there's another abandoned structure in these woods, and that is actually an old safari theme park. This was known as the Jungle Habitat. It was closed down in the 1970s. Even when they were open, there were rumors that the animals would sometimes escape, especially if they were sick animals. They would want to go out into the woods and die in the woods. But it was shut down, and when it was shut down, people claimed that not all of the animals got removed from the park. Some of them were left in the woods. And so people driving along the woods at night will sometimes run across one of these animals. Not literally run across them, but they will be on the side of the road and you'll drive by them. One gentleman said he was scared out of his wits one night as he was coming around a bend in the corner, and he saw some unnatural glowing eyes on a monkey-like figure. And it was just staring at him, and he stared at it as it was getting closer and getting closer. He said the creature started to get rather agitated, so he just stepped on the gas and drove by it, praying that two things would happen. One, his car would not break down, and two, the creature wouldn't leap out at him. He said he never drove that road again after that night. He didn't want to see any other ape-like or monkey-like creatures. Other people have also reported seeing kangaroos going along this road, and I always said, well, does it want to race? Does it not want to race? Whatever, just let the kangaroo win. It's like let the Wookiee win. I have, unfortunately, been going down a road with a moose, and yeah, you let the moose win too. You don't want to be in a wreck. A lot of people actually will attest the hauntedness of this road to the criminal activity that apparently took place in the woods, whether it be moonshining, whether it be other things that were going on. But as I said, the Native Americans said this land had an energy to it for years beforehand, and there was a reason why they never settled it and why the early American settlers never really settled it, and it still remains such a dense wooded area.
Yeah, you want to finish that?
Oh, I don't even know what you're saying. Oh, hey, Glenn.
Yeah, I'm responding to people. I'm trying to be interactive and technologically savvy.
I'm gonna let you do that because I have no idea what you've heard.
Oh, that's okay. All right. Well,
We'll write to you in a minute.
Yeah, we'll catch up. We'll catch up with everybody.
I'm not tapped in here yet.
We'll catch up with everybody. So we have a couple more stories that we're going to share with you this evening, and we are going to start bringing them much closer to home. I am making an executive decision here. I'm going to swap the last two stories.
Okay, fine.
Yes, so...
I need to just get to my notes.
So,
okay, cool.
Bringing us back closer to Richmond, bringing us back into our beautiful state of Virginia, we are going to take a short trip down the road to the east from here in Richmond to the Colonial Triangle, and more specifically, beautiful Yorktown.
Yeah, this was actually one we had not heard about prior to last year's Scares That Care convention. When we were at the Scares That Care convention, we met a couple of people that work in that area in the restaurant industry who are helping out and volunteering at the convention, and they're like, "Oh my God, do you know about Crawford Road?"
Like Crawford Road? What?
It's like, what? Do tell.
And so here we are.
So we researched.
Yeah, we researched. We got a little bit of information from our friends, and we're here to go ahead and throw it together and throw it at you this evening. So Crawford Road is a very infamous stretch of road down there in Yorktown, and it's a section that many of the locals, as locals tend to do, they tend to go ahead and avoid haunted sections of roadway, which I suppose you can't really blame them, because as we've also covered this evening, many of these haunted highways or these haunted roadways, people wind up wrecking their cars after they see something go ahead and pop up in the middle of the road in front of them. So,
no one wants to buy a new car every year.
Yeah, no, not really my thing. And so most of the locals avoid this route altogether, and particularly dare not to go out and drive this road at night. So there's a couple of stories from this, and think back to your stereotypical horror movies where you got a group of kids driving down the road, kind of having a great old time.
Beer bottle hanging out the door.
Yeah, and so the story goes, a group of friends are cruising one night, and they decided to turn down Crawford Road. They were driving down the road, joking, laughing, singing songs along to the CD that they had just gotten popped in the stereo. So kind of dating the story a little bit. CDs were kind of a new thing, and kind of a new thing to have in the car. So think back, late 90s, not too terribly long ago, probably in the ballpark of the 20 to 25 years ago. And they reached the bridge there at Crawford Road, and all of a sudden, the track they're listening to on the CD lets out a high-pitched, obnoxious screeching sound. The noise lasted for about a full 10 seconds until they were far enough away from the bridge and the CD started to play as normal. The interesting thing about this is that the CD was just fine going in to this drive. Afterwards, that noise that they heard for about 10 seconds was permanently embedded on the CD and could still be heard when they played back the CD again in the future. So those friends, needless to say, they have not returned to that section of Crawford Road ever since.
I'm actually curious if anybody still has the CD.
I would definitely like to know if that CD still exists, or if somebody at least made a recording of it.
Yeah. Something to find out with our paranormal group, see if anybody has any connections.
Yeah. If anybody listening knows anything about it, shoot us a message or something. We'd be interested to know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have another group of friends driving down the road late at night, very similar to the first account.
Gee, what did we all do in the 90s, late at night?
Drove around, listened to music, and...
got in trouble.
Yeah. And everything is fine until they get to the bridge. While they were driving, they suddenly felt as if they had run something over. They all got out of the car to check, but there was nothing there. Startled, they returned to the car and continued on their drive when all of a sudden the window started to fog up and handprints could be seen making their way up the window from the outside. Shocked and confused, they kept driving and soon began to hear thuds around the car. Then on the trunk, they thought that something had fallen on top of the car or something was trying to get in. After the thudding stopped, there was a smearing sound as a hand went and streaked its way down the back window. Began to slide down until it fell off and hit the road. When they got out to check, God help me, why on earth did they get out to check? But they got out to check, and again, nothing was there. In a real horror movie, those kids would have been dead. Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, they would have been dead. They would have been gone.
You don't get out of the car. You can just keep driving. Got a perfectly good car. Don't get out of the car. Drive away.
Report it once you're safe and sound in the city, town, something.
But that is not; those two are not the most popular stories of Crawford Road and the most infamous bridge. Do you want to dive in?
So the most popular story is known as the wedding story or the bride. Years ago, a wedding took place near the area. Most agreed that the bride was not a happy bride. And she actually tried to escape her fate. And the way she escaped it is she actually hung herself from that bridge. She jumped from the top and is seen dangling as you're entering under the bridge below from Crawford Road. One woman told people that she was driving along Crawford Road, and as she was beginning to pass under the bridge, she noticed a lady dressed in a white gown standing at the top of the bridge looking down at her. She drove under the bridge, and she looked back just in time to see the woman step off the top of the bridge and fall. Instead of seeing the woman actually land on the ground, she saw her stop midair and just dangle there. She never saw a rope. She never saw anything else, just the body stopping mid-air, dangling. She quickly got out of there, called it in. Nobody ever saw it that evening when they went to go and investigate. There have been multiple car accidents near this bridge. A number of apparitions appear near the bridge around the road, and it causes drivers to swerve and miss them. Unfortunately, the bride is not the only one who is said to have been hung there. This was also another popular suicide place, as well as other people going in there and just being absolutely distraught and things happening right around this bridge. So there's a lot of phantom activity around this bridge. Unfortunately, people, as Chris said, will swerve out of the way, and when they swerve out of the way, they usually hit a tree or they hit the side of the bridge, and that will either wreck the car or possibly even kill them and add them to the numbers of the ghosts haunting this area. We have not driven this road yet.
So, the more we're talking about this evening, the less inclined I'm to feel about seeking out haunted roads. It's one thing to go ahead and, check out paranormal buildings and do paranormal investigations on buildings and stuff like that.
But it never ends well on a haunted road.
I don't think I want to get in the car and drive down a haunted road. Something just tells me that does not end well for a lot of people.
Now, we have driven down this last one, and
We
this
have.
is a lot closer to home.
Much closer to home. We're bringing us right back to RVA.
And Chris actually worked on part of this
I
one.
did, and it is the definitely by far the most infamous, famous haunted stretch of highway here in the Richmond area. Maybe you've caught on by now. Maybe if you know anything about Richmond, you will know about Pocahontas Parkway,
Or the
895.
The toll road.
The toll road. So this is, it's a relatively new section of highway. It stretches only about 8.8 miles between Henrico and Chesterfield counties, goes right by the Richmond airport, and the section that Beth was mentioning that I worked on was when they first built it, it passed the airport, but there wasn't really a direct exit to get off for the airport. That came later. I did a little bit of work on that little spur section of highway that got off 895 and goes to the Richmond airport.
You didn't come home telling any ghost stories, though.
No, nothing happened. Nothing happened in that particular area. And granted, I was only out there working during the day. Many of the paranormal investigation or paranormal happenings out there are things that have happened in the evening and late at night. So it's got its stories out there.
So to start this off, it actually was started construction on October 13th of 1998. I'd have to go back and look to find out if that was a Friday the 13th, because that could have added something to this. Anyway, but the construction actually kept going all the way through to September 20th of 2002. It was supposed to be done by April. They opened up a portion of it in May, and it finally was completely open at that point in time in September. And within a few weeks, they had the first reports of ghostly activity. Now, this started with the truck drivers at night actually having the sightings. One driver reported seeing 3 Indian braves on mounted horses weaving in and out of traffic, sometimes even weaving in and out of cars or trucks, just riding along, hooping and hollering and whooping. They also reported hearing beating drums and chanting along the woodlined hills along the parkway as you are driving along it.
Yeah, it's a very rural section of road, so it goes through mainly agricultural areas and and woodland areas. So it's kind of out there, out there on the the outskirts of
Skirts
town,
yeah.
where it quickly goes from urban to a very brief bit of suburban and then quickly into the rural area.
Now, when they would have these sightings, the truck drivers would stop at the toll booths, pay their tolls, and tell the toll booth workers what had happened. And the toll booth workers were required to make reports anytime this happened. So they started compiling a lot of reports.
And this happened so often that eventually it didn't take long for the local media to catch wind of this, and the Richmond Times-Dispatch actually went ahead and printed a story about the paranormal happenings that were occurring along the Pocahontas Parkway and the various reports that were coming from it as well.
The first thing was everybody's going, oh my God, did you disturb an ancient burial ground? No, they did not. This was a hunting, fishing area for the Native Americans. It was not a burial ground area. They actually did talk to the local tribes, the Nazamon tribes, to kind of get an idea of what the lay of the land would have been for the people at that point in time.
Yeah, they did, they did talk with the tribes. If any burial ground was disturbed, it was certainly inadvertent in this case, unlike what they did down on the I-4. They made an effort to go ahead and make sure that they weren't going to be plowing under anybody's graves in this case.
Yeah. Now, another truck driver actually thought that this was the local tribe protesting,
yes.
Which it wasn't.
No, absolutely not. So you actually had two tribes. You have the Nazman tribe and, what was the other one? Nazman and Chickahominy?
Yeah.
The Chickahominy tribe. They were these Native American tribes. At this point in time, there was a big push, not just here in Virginia, but for many Native American tribes across the country. They were pushing for the very much desired status of being an officially recognized tribe federally recognized by the government. And these occurrences down on 895 actually started to really upset the tribes, and they were getting very concerned because they were worried that these paranormal occurrences, these Native American apparitions that were being reported, that skeptics would go ahead and say, these tribes they're stirring up trouble to try and to get their way. They're causing these disturbances to try and make a point, but it couldn't be any further from the truth, because the tribes recognized that by causing any trouble at this point in time would actually jeopardize their ability to get the federal recognition. So they totally swore off and said that they had absolutely nothing to do with this. And
in fact, one of them, they talked to one of the chiefs, and the chiefs are just like, if these are African or Native American spirits, they're just doing what they did in life, which is running their horses along this area when they were hunting the grounds, and that's probably what you're seeing a recreation of.
And hearing, for that matter.
Hearing.
Yeah, I mean, there was a fair bit of actual audio. You could hear
EVPs and audio things going on. People are like, "Oh, it's hounds." It's not, and other people are like, "No, I have heard what kenneled hounds sound like. This is nothing like that."
Yeah, and also the sounds of even some tribal drums.
Yeah, and if you research what big hunting party rituals were, there was a whole ritual the night before the hunt went out that included chanting and the drumming and things along those lines. So you're hearing sort of a recreation of that hunt. Another truck driver actually had reported what was going on and what he thought it was to one of the toll booth operators, and she actually had several experiences herself of these Native American spirits on the horses coming through the toll booth that she was in. And she flat out put him straight and right and said, no, these are ghosts. They are doing what they have always done. It's just a little easier to see them now because there are 6 lanes of traffic that are well lit. But she did what she was supposed to do, and she went and she filed the report. At the end of the shift, the state police officers were actually called in, and they came down to investigate, as had happened at least a dozen times while these sightings were very, very active. And they actually had 2 reports that were documented. The first was at 3:11 a.m. on the 1st of July in 2002. And the second was 2 days later at 1:44 a.m. Both reports describe the specter as having a cloudy but fully formed legs, arms, and torso, but only a vague outline of the head being seen. Both troopers and toll workers have reported hearing the Indian drums, the mingled war whoops and shouts, and at least a dozen voices that could have drowned out the noise of a tractor trailer. They're pretty good at projecting their voices.
Yeah. Now, it's worth noting that this story of all of them kind of has a somewhat happy ending. So these Native American tribes that were so desperately seeking the federal recognition that they wanted and rightfully deserved it for that matter, they got this recognition. And after they received the recognition from the federal government, it is noted that these paranormal occurrences along 895 had subsided. Excuse me. I'm out of beer. I think it's probably about time we start wrapping this up. But they subsided. And so they... the story subsided.
Yes.
Sightings subsided.
Sightings subsided. They haven't had any major sightings since then. So hopefully that recognition may have put them to rest.
Yes. So that is our last story for this evening, though, as we noted, we will certainly be revisiting the subject of haunted highways again in the future, and several of our friends here have noted numerous stories of other paranormal occurrences that have happened on other highways here in the Virginia area. Got the white dog of a 360 that's been mentioned, and the Three Sisters as well. So those are stories.
We will take a look.
Yeah, we will take a look. I've heard the names of those stories, or it's very possible I might be getting them crossed with something else that just sounds similar.
Because there are a lot of stories out there.
Yeah, and now that I think about a Three Sisters, there's a Three Sisters Lighthouse up near where we usually go and visit during the summer, up on the St. Lawrence Seaway. That might be the Three Sisters I'm thinking of. But all the same,
we will look it up.
We will look it up and we'll check it out, and we will see about doing another episode of Haunted Highways again down the road. We will be back next week.
Yep, I think we're going to switch to rail lines and tunnels.
Railroads and tunnels, yes, that's next week. But also, as was brought up this evening, we had, who was that mentioned? Somebody mentioned, of course, Sleepy Hollow when we started talking about the Hessians.
Yep.
And
that's one that we are thinking about for later.
Yes.
So I think that probably will be episode 3.
Yeah, we will be doing that at some point as well. So we got several more weeks because we're going to be quarantined for several more weeks. God help us. God help you.
We can do this. We can do this.
Yeah, we can do this. We can do this.
We've got to do this. We have no choice.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us an outlet to go ahead and tell some stories.
Thank you for giving me a job during the week of doing something.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'd be driving him nuts.
Yes, allowing me to have some, drink some beer and tell some stories. Mm-hmm. So we greatly appreciate you tuning in, and we will look forward to joining you again next week. Oh, and by the way, this was really good beer. This episode brought to you by Rich Brow Brewing down in Chocobottom, 5 South 20th Street. They are still doing takeout and some delivery. So if you're in the Richmond area and you're looking for some good craft beer, Rich Brow can get you taken care of.
And they're all based on Richmond legends.
Yes, their names are all based on Richmond legends. They actually just released one called Eliza.
Yes, for Eliza Poe.
Eliza Poe. I mean, it's not necessarily legends. It's lore, historical information. They got a whole lineup of very good beer down there, and they're very good friends of ours. Recommend you check them out.
And one of the second incantation of Rich Brow,
this is the third.
Yeah, this is the third, but the second location, which was up in Chaco Slip, is a haunted building, by the way. We talk about that on our Haunted Capitol Hill tour. So there are some connections to Rich Brow. We also talk about Rich Brow in our History of Brewing tour for our history company. Which is going to get canceled this month. But hopefully August. Hopefully August we will be able to have it. Yes. So we will see. Time will tell. But it's... Everybody stay inside so we can get outside sooner. Yes. All stay safe. I hope you all stay safe and healthy out there. Healthy, safe, all that good stuff. Sane. Checking on your friends. Yes, checking on your friends virtually, like we are right now. So, yes. Video chat, wonderful thing. Skype, wonderful thing. So,
thanks a lot. If you want to do something for us, we greatly appreciate. Just help spread the word. Let us know what we're doing. Let us know. Let us know how we're doing. Let people know what we're doing.
And again, we have gift cards available, e-gift cards that you can use to purchase towards future events and tours. Once we're back open and outside running again, trust us, as soon as they give us the A-OK, we will be opening up those tours, and we will be adding tours just so people can get out and enjoy the haunted history of the area.
Yes, we consider our tours to be fairly, to be safe, particularly in the current circumstances. They're all outdoor open air activities. So
you can stand apart. Our guides have microphones, so they can project a little bit louder for those who stand apart. So yeah, as soon as we get the okay to take groups out, we will definitely be heading outside.
Patrick, I will tell you, if we are still quarantined in August, we will be right there in the room next to you. We will mental hospital. Yeah, no, we're in August. No, just no, just.
But
put that thought off.
Crossed.
Fingers crossed. Hope maybe sometime next month. Maybe. Hopefully
the latest June 10th is where we're at right now, and
yes.
hopefully that is the latest.
Yes. So again, I'm starting to ramble. The beer, it's a good strong one, and I had a little bit before we got on the air here, so...
And I need a drink, so...
Yeah, and she needs a drink. She teetotaler.
No, I was on Coke. I needed the caffeine.
You're on Coke?
Not that Coke.
Okay. Just to be clear. Yay, roomies. All right. Everybody, thanks again so much for tuning in. I hope you all have a good night, and hope you tune in again next week. Y'all have a good one. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.